shalom. For water to everybody that came out for the lesson today. This is another godly discourse. Today we're going to be going over, um, us not being in the new covenant as of yet. Um, so just often people like to say that we're already in the new covenant. Today I wanted to go through scriptures, not only to show that we are not in the new covenant, but also to go briefly into the process of us coming into the new covenant, what that's going to look like, as well as hopefully show for the spirit that we will be will no slack you show through the spirit how we will be when we are coming into the new covenant. So I want to start out by giving all praise to Yahweh by Shema Mashiach Yahushai. Azriel, if you can get Mark 14 and read verses 23 through 25.
Come, ready on deck. And he took the cup, and when he had given thanks, he gave it to them, and they drank, and they all drank of it. And he said unto them, This is my blood of the New Testament, which I shed for many. Verily I say unto you, I will drink no more of the fruit of the vine until that day that I drink it new in the kingdom of God.
Khan. So, right here we see that, Yahweh Shai is basically telling them that, his blood will soon be shed in order for the children of Israel to have a way into this new covenant. So KB, if you can get John 19, and can you read verses 28 through 30? Because, this is going to show more prophetically, we have to go through his death so we can get a deeper understanding of, where we are covenantally.
Khan. This is the book of John, chapter 19 and verse 28. After this, Yahushua, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, saith, I thirst. Verse 29. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, and they filled a sponge with vinegar, and put it upon hyssop, and put it to his mouth. When Yahushua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, It is finished. And he bowed his head and gave up the ghost.
Khan. So, a lot of times Christians will read this verse and they'll say, you know, all things were now accomplished, and then they'll see him say it is finished, and they'll misinterpret or, more so interpolate into the scriptures that means that all things prophesied, are fulfilled, all the Old Testament covenantal promises, all of that is fulfilled, and, it's simply not. So I want to actually get into verses 28 and 29 to show that this is actually the fulfillment of a prophecy that was in Psalms about how the manner in which he would die. So, Azrael, if
I
you
got you.
are you already, Khan, you're already there. Psalm 69, 20 and 21.
Come. It's the book of Psalms, chapter 69, verse 20 and 21. Reproach had broken my heart, and I am full of heaviness. And I looked for some to take pity, but there was none, and for comforters, but I found none. They gave me also gall for my meat, and in my thirst they gave me vinegar to drink.
Khan. So, right here we're seeing that this prophecy that, through the Spirit David, gave in Psalms is referring to the way in which that Yahweh Shah is going to, give up his ghost for the nation of Israel. So, this is actually what he's talking about being accomplished here. And, even Paul goes into it in Acts. So, KB, if you will, can you get Acts chapter 3 and read verses 15 through 18 to show once again that, when he talks about it being fulfilled, that's not talking about all the prophecies.
Khan. This is the book of Acts, chapter 5 and verse 15. Insomuch that they brought forth the sick into the streets.
Oh, Salaki, is this Acts chapter 3?
Salakia. Wrong one. This is the book of Acts, chapter 3 and verse 15.
Yeah, it
Salakia.
should be Acts chapter 3, verses 15 through 18.
Salakia King. This is the book of Acts, chapter 3 and verse 15. And killed the Prince of Life, whom Yahweh hath raised from the dead, whereof we are wickedness, and his name through faith in his name hath made this man strong, whom ye see and know. Yea, the faith which is by him hath given him this perfect soundness in the presence of you all. And now, brethren, I wrote that through ignorance ye did it, and did also your rulers. But those things which Yahweh before had showed by the mouth of all his prophets, that Christ should suffer, he hath so fulfilled.
Con. So, we see right here, just like I showed with the Psalms precept, dealing with, all the prophecies of Yahweh's death, this is what he was talking about that were fulfilled. All the things were spoke by the mouth of the holy prophets. Obviously we would know that the Prince of Life would be Yahweh. So, this is talking about the manner in which that he was going to give up his life for the nation of Israel. So now I want to get, deeper into the understanding of the meaning of his death. Because we see through the spirit, Caiaphas basically had an understanding of what his death was going to mean for the nation. So, Azrael, can you get John chapter 11 and read verses 47 through 52?
Con. It's book of John, chapter 11 and verse 47. Then gathered the chief priests and the Pharisees and council, and said, what do we? For this man doeth many miracles. If we let him thus alone, all men will believe on him, and the Romans shall come and take away both our place and nation. And one of them, named Caiaphas, being the high priest that same year, said unto them, ye know nothing at all, nor consider that it is expedient for us that one man should die for the people, that the whole nation perish not. And this spake he not of himself, but being the high priest that year, he prophesied that Yahushua should die for that nation, and not for that nation only, but also Salakia, but that also he should gather together in one the children of God that were scattered abroad.
Con. So we see right here that the death of Yahweh was for the atonement of the children of Israel. A lot of times Christians will get to verse 52 and they'll say, see, this means all the other nations. But, it's actually just talking about the Israelites that were scattered abroad, which in of itself is even a cut for, us being in the new covenant. But we're going to get deeper into that. But now that we've covered the death of Yahweh and what it means for the nation of Israel, basically to take a deeper look into the new covenant, I actually want to get into the gospel, because that gives a very good insight into what this new covenant is, and when we're going to be in it. So KB, can you get Luke chapter 4 and read verses 17 through 20?
Khan. This is the book of Luke, chapter 4 and verse 17. And there was delivered unto him the book of the prophet of Esaias. And when he had opened the book, he found the place where it was written, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He hath sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captives, and recovering the sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised, to preach the acceptable year of the Lord. And he closed the book, and he gave it again to the minister, and sat down. And the eyes of all them that were in the synagogue were fastened on him.
Con. So we see right here, he's describing the gospel as something that he's reading in Isaiah, and we're actually going to get into that in a little bit. But basically he's showing that this prophecy of this new covenant that is contained within the gospel, um, basically what when he closed the book, all that he was going to accomplish in his earthly mission was before that, and the rest of it will be at his return. So I want to get that in a minute. But Azrael, can you get Acts 1 and read verses 6 through 7, Baba Kusha?
Come. It's the book of Acts, chapter 1, and verse 6. When they therefore were come together to him, saying, Lord, wilt thou at this time restore again the kingdom to Israel? And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father had put in his own power.
Con. So, we see right here, the children of Israel at the time period that Yahushua was walking the earth, they basically were trying to ask him, is this the time period that he was going to restore Israel to the promises of old, like was prophesied? And at this point, he's saying that only the Father knows. Oftentimes, people will read this verse and it kind of gets overlooked that, he's talking about the kingdom being restored to Israel and saying that, the time and the seasons the Father has put in his own power. So we're going to actually get to that later. So just, keep that in your memory because we're going to revisit this. So now, KB, can you read the first two verses of Isaiah 61? Because now we want to show, that these things were fulfilled during, Yahushua's earthly mission. So
Con. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, and verse 1. The Spirit of the Lord Yahweh is upon me, because the Lord hath anointed me to preach good tidings unto the meek. He hath sent me to bind up the brokenhearted, to proclaim liberty to the captive, and the opening of the prison to them that are bound, to proclaim the acceptable year of the Lord, and the day of vengeance of our power, to comfort all that mourn.
con. So, this is him, in the gospel that he read in Luke 4. This is the same, verse that he was reading in Luke 4. And, before he closed the book, um, he talked about, opening the prisons to them that are bound. So I actually want to get the prophecy of that and then also get fulfillment when it happened in the New Testament, after, his death. So, Azriel, can you hold Zechariah 9 and 11? And then KB, can you hold Matthew 27, verses 52 through 53? Baba Kusha. Azriel, you can bring out Zechariah when you get there.
Come. This is the book of Zechariah, chapter 9, and verse 11. As for thee also, by the blood of thy covenant, I have sent forth thy prisoners out of the pit, wherein is no water.
Con. So, this is a Old Testament prophecy of this taking place. This is supposed to take place, by the blood of the covenant. We know that blood would be Yahushua's blood being shed for the nation of Israel. KV, can you bring out when this actually took place after his death? Once again, showing that, the things that right before actually at the end of verse 2 in Isaiah 61, these were the things that he was going to fulfill in his earthly mission.
Con. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 27, and verse 52. And the graves were opened, and many bodies of the saints which slept arose, and came out of the graves after his resurrection, and went into the holy city and appeared unto many.
Khan. So, playing upon tables, we're seeing that, literally what was prophesied that, Yahushua was going to do by the blood of a covenant in Zechariah 9 and 11, as well as, Isaiah 61, the first two verses, took place. So, now I actually want to cover, what happens after verse or verse 2, basically to show that the understanding that we're not in the new covenant and show the, the process of us actually getting into the new covenant. So now, Azrael, can you actually read Isaiah 61 and read verses 3 through 9? Baba Kusha.
Con, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 3. And it reads, To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he might be glorified. And they shall build the old wastes, they shall rise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations. And strangers shall stand and feed their flocks, and the sons of their alien shall be plowmen and vine dressers, and your vine dressers, Salakia. But ye shall be named the priests of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves. For you shame, Salakia, for your shame you shall have double, and for your confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in the land they shall possess the double, everlasting joy shall be unto them. For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And their seed shall be known among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed.
Khan, my bad, I was on mute. So, one of the main things that I just wanted to point out with the passage that Azrael just, finished up is that it's an everlasting covenant. So we're going to get, point by point. I actually want to go back to verse 3. And then, KB, can you hold Psalms 1, 1 through 3? Because I'm going to show when these things in eschatology, play out. These are all things that are going to happen at Yahushua's return. So, Azrael, if you can just read Isaiah 61 and 3 just one more time, just so it's fresh in people's minds.
No problem. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 3. To appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they might be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified.
Khan. So, we see the trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord. So, KB, can you bring out Psalms 1, 1 through 3? And then Azrael, after that on the back end, can you hold Revelations 22 and 2? Baba Kusha.
Khan, this is the book of Psalms, chapter 1. Chapter 1 and verse 1. Blessed is the man that walketh not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor standeth in the way of sinners, nor sitteth in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law doth he meditate day and night. And he shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water, that bringeth forth his fruit in his season. His leaf also shall not wither, and whatsoever he doeth shall prosper.
So these verses are bringing out specifically what is a promise for people that keep the commandments of the Most High. It talks about them being like a tree planted by the rivers of water, bringing fruit, bringing forth their fruit in due season. So now, Azrael, can you bring out Revelation 22:2 to show when this will take place?
Come. Revelation 22 and 2. In the midst of the streets of it, and of either side of the river, was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations.
So we see in eschatology, this is taking place in the kingdom. This is end time prophecy. So what's being talked about in Isaiah 61:3 cannot be before Yahweh Shah returns. um Want to get a couple of verses just now to deal with, because people read the healing of the nations, and they'll take this as it's something that's very sweet, and basically they're going to be learning the commandments of God and keeping them, and they'll be just like us, and that's not the understanding of it. So can you KB, can you hold Isaiah 60:12, and then Azrael, can you hold Zechariah 14:17? Baba Kasha. KB, when you get there, you can bring out Isaiah.
Con. Con. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 60 and verse 12. For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted.
So this time period of when the healing of the nations, when the other nations will learn our law, statutes, and commandments through captivity, it's not going to be a sweet thing. So I just wanted to make this point abundantly clear before people get it twisted. Azrael, can you bring out Zechariah 14:17 once again to nail this point?
Come. Zechariah 14 and verse 17. And it shall be that whoso will not come up of all the families of the earth unto Jerusalem to worship the King of the Lord's hosts, even upon them shall be no rain.
So this is actually going into there will be famine in their lands. If there's no rain, there is no vegetation, there is no food. So if you're not getting any rain because this nation refuses to serve the Lord, they'll be destroyed in the kingdom. So once again, I just wanted to bring those out, just to show that this is not anything sweet. um so now, Salaki, can we go back to Isaiah 61 and read verse 4? I just want to make a couple more points.
Come. It's the book of Isaiah 61 and verse 4.
Oh, Salakia, just real quick, actually, this popped into my head. Can you actually get Isaiah chapter 2 and read 2 for free, just once again to show this healing of the nations being an end time prophecy?
Come. This is the book of Isaiah chapter 2, verse 2. And it shall come to pass in the last days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established in the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above all the hills, and all nations shall flow unto it. And many people shall go and say, Come, come ye, and let us go up to the mountain of the Lord, to the house of the God of Jacob, and he will teach us his ways, and we will walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law, and the word of the Lord from Jerusalem.
Con. So it starts out by saying that these are going to take place in the last days. The mountain of the Lord's house being established at the top of the mountains. Mountains, refer to kingdom, so it's basically saying that the kingdom of the Lord will be established at the top. It's going to be the top kingdom on the face of the earth. It shall be exalted above the hills. That's going into it being the highest of all the nations. Um, So, the law is going to basically come out of Israel, and, we're going to teach the nations our ways, and, we'll be in the new covenant because we will be keeping the commandments at a perfect clip. But, they're going to still have to be punished. That would, go into Revelations 2 and 27, but I'm not going to get that. Just wanted to make that point real quick before we go back into Isaiah 61. So now, Azrael, can you get Isaiah 61 and verse 4?
Come. It's the book of Isaiah, chapter 61, and verse 4. And it reads, "And they shall build the old ways, they shall raise up the former desolations, and they shall repair the waste cities, the desolations of many generations."
Khan. So this really shows clearly that the current land of Israel will be destroyed. You know, World War III. It'll be destroyed, so it will have to be rebuilt. And the children of the strangers will be the ones that are doing so. After we're gathered back into that land. So just wanted to make that point. Can you get verse 5 now? And then KB, can you read or hold Isaiah 14 and 1 through 2?
Verse 5 of Isaiah 61.
Con. Just so it's fresh.
Okay, Khan. This is Isaiah 61 and 5. "And the strangers shall stand and feed your flocks, and the sons of the alien shall be your plowmen and your vine dressers."
So once again, these are things after, Yahushua closed the book. And, we're seeing that, the Israelites will have, strangers feed their flocks, basically, tend to their animals and, be their plowmen and their vine dressers. Basically, Esau, you're going to have to mow the fields, till the fields, like our, forefathers unfortunately had to do here in Babylon. So, we've never had this happen, in any point in, history where we've had all the other nations in slavery. So once again, this shows that we are not in the new covenant. KB, can you bring out Isaiah 14, 1 through 2, Baba Kasha?
Khan. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 14 and verse 1. For the Lord will have mercy on Jacob and will yet choose Israel and set them in their own land, and the strangers shall be joined with them, and they shall cleave to the house of Jacob, and the people shall take them and bring them to their place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of the Lord for servants and handmaids, and they shall take them captive, whose captives they were, and they shall rule over their oppressors.
Khan. So, all praises for that thing. But, that's basically what at this point we are, waiting patiently for as the saints. I want to get just one more precept on this, dealing with Isaiah 61 and 5, to show that, this time period has not taken place yet. So, Azrael, can you get Revelations 13, 9 through verse 10, Baba Kusha?
Khan. It's the book of Revelations. Revelations, chapter 13, verse
Yeah, Khan.
10. "If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints."
So, once again, when we read in Acts 1, 7 through 8, this is what they were, patiently waiting for. But, this had not taken place yet. We are still patiently waiting for this. If you're a saint, that this is what your patience and your faith is in. So, once again, Isaiah 61 and 5 has not taken place yet. These are all conditions. They're in the gospel, but as we get further down into the gospel, we're going to see that these are all conditions of us coming into the new covenant. Now, can you get Isaiah 61 and 6? Baba Kushal, just so it's fresh once again, just going point by point.
Come, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 6. And it reads, "But ye shall be named the priest of the Lord. Men shall call you the ministers of our God. Ye shall eat the riches of the Gentiles, and in their glory shall you boast yourselves."
Khan, so this is basically going into us spoiling the nations, taking their riches, taking their possessions, their gold, their silver. All these things will be delivered unto Israel at this point. This once again has not happened yet. So, it's impossible for us to be in the new covenant. KB, can you get Isaiah 60, verse 10 through 11? Because, once again, this is not taking place yet. These are all things that we should be patiently, and faithfully waiting for.
Con. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 60 and verse 10. And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee. Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought.
Khan, so the forces of the Gentiles, that's once again their possessions, their wealth, their gold. All those things will be, returned back to the children of Israel. So they will be spoiled, but we have not spoiled them yet. So, once again, these are all things to show that we are not in the new covenant. Now, Azrael, can you get Isaiah 61 and 7, Baba Kushal, and then KB, can you get Revelations 18 and 6? Because I want to show something dealing with this double.
Come, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 7, and it reads, "For your shame you shall have double, and for your confusion they shall rejoice in their portion. Therefore in their land they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them."
Con. So, we see right here, the prophecy of us, giving them double. Once again, I want to just remind you, this verse literally follows us, spoiling the Gentiles as well as taking them into slavery. So now, it's telling us that, we're going to have double. So KB, can you get Revelations 18 and 6? Because this is actually going to show that the Most High, spoke this thing into existence and it's going to happen in the end.
Right. This is the book of Revelations, chapter 18 and verse 6. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works. In the cup which she hath filled, fill to her double.
Con. So, this is we all obviously know that in Revelations 18, it's dealing with Babylon the Great. But, this is a similitude basically for the nations. Slaki, Azrael, you had something?
Salakia. La'a.
Oh, no, Con, you're good. Yeah, no, so this is a similitude for, what's going to happen to the Edomites, here, as well as, the nations in general. We're going to do unto them double. So now, can you just read once again Isaiah 61 and read verses 8 through 9 just once again, just so it's fresh.
Come, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 61 and verse 8. "For I, the Lord, love judgment. I hate robbery for burnt offering, and I will direct their work in truth, and I will make an everlasting covenant with them. And their seed shall be known amongst the Gentiles, or among the Gentiles, and their offspring among the people. All they that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed."
Con. So, once again, this is showing that this is an everlasting covenant that he's going to make with his people. Them being known amongst the Gentiles, that basically is talking about, in the kingdom, if an Israelite's walking down the street, they're going to be like, yo, that's King Ben. So it's going to be much different than how they treat us today in terms of respect. And I want to get, this wasn't even in my notes, but I do want to get it. KB, can you hold Revelations 2 and 9? Because it says, all all that see them shall acknowledge them, that they are the seed which the Lord have blessed. So, in these last days, when the Most High, returns and, brings us into this covenant, you know, they'll know that, we were the people that the Most High loved. So, KB, can you bring that out?
Con. This is the book of Revelations, chapter 2, and verse 9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Khan. So, what isn't it like a part? Maybe it was verse 10. I'm not looking at it, where it talks about I will make them of the synagogue of Satan to bow.
Uh, I believe that is that Revelations.
That might be three.
That 3 and 9. That was three. That'd be 3 and 9, I believe. You wanted me to go to that one?
Yeah, Khan. Bring that out, Salakia.
Okay. This is the book of Revelations, chapter 3 and verse 9. It says, "Behold, I will make them I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee."
Khan. So I just wanted to get that because in verse, Isaiah 61 and 9, which when it says, and all that see them shall acknowledge them that they are the seed which the Lord hath blessed. That would tie into Revelations 2 and 9 and 3 and 9. So, Salaki, I told you just to get 2 and 9. That's my fault. The next place I want to get, just dealing with the new covenant, can you get Jeremiah 32 and then read verses 37 through 40? Babu Kasha.
Con, this is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 32 and verse 37. And it reads, Behold, I will gather them out of all countries whither I have driven them in mine anger and in my fury and in great wrath, and I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely, and they shall be
Well,
my
Salaki,
people.
I do want to make a point just real quick before you go ahead.
Con,
That part about dwelling safely, once again, that proves that those people over in the land of Israel are not, God's chosen people. But just wanted to make that point before you continue, Babu Kasha.
they haven't had a safe day and since they established that place, right? I'm going to take it from the top. Behold, I will gather them. This is Jeremiah 32 and 37, by the way. Behold, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them in mine anger and in my fury and in great wrath. And I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God. And I will give them one heart and one way, that they may fear me forever, for the good of them and of their children after them. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them to do them good, but I will put my fear in their hearts, that they shall not depart from me.
Khan. So, once again, this is the everlasting covenant that he's going to bring us into. But, we see at the top, part of that has to do with it. First, we have to be gathered out of all the nations, whether he's, driven us, into captivity. And then also it talks about he'll give them one heart that they fear me forever. So, we won't be committing sin at this point. It won't be like now where you kind of go off. No, it'll just be in your spirit at all times to keep the commandments. It even says that at the end, and that they shall not depart from me. So definitely shows to me that we're not in the new covenant. Want to get one more there's two more places actually I can show that us being gathered out of all nations is part of coming into this new covenant. So, KB, can you hold Baruch 2 and read verses 30 through 35? And then actually, Azrael, before he reads that, can you read Luke 21 and 24, just to show that even after Yahweh's death, it was foretold for us to go into captivity again?
Khan, this is the book of Luke, chapter 21 and verse 24. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Khan. So, this once again shows that the people over there in the land of Israel are not the people, because in eschatology, and KB is going to bring this out once again to show it. Part of us coming into the new covenant is being gathered out of all nations where we've been driven captive, which was prophesied, in Luke 21 and 24. So, if this was supposed to take place, you know, if we were supposed to come into the new covenant immediately after Yahweh's death, you know, there would be no reason for us to go into captivity and need to be gathered back again. So, once again, we are not in the new covenant. KB, can you bring out Baruch chapter 2?
Khan, this is the book of Baruch, chapter 2, and I'm start at 30. For I knew that they would not hear me, because it is a stiff necked people. But in the land of their captivities they shall remember themselves, and shall know that I am the Lord their power, for I will give them an heart and ears to hear.
Let me pause you right there just once again. So this is all supposed to take place in the land of our captivity. So, once again, that links up with Luke 21 and 24 about us going into captivity. So, you know, we're going to remember ourselves, just like, now I'm not going to grab it right now, but Ezekiel 37, that whole part is about us, coming back into our knowledge, which, we're seeing a lot of our brothers and sisters do currently. So, all praises for that. But KB, you can continue.
Khan, verse 32. And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name, and return from their stiff neck, and from their wicked deeds. For they shall remember the way of their fathers, which sinned before the Lord. And I will bring them again to the land which I promised with an oath unto their fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they shall be lords of it, and I will increase them, and they shall not be diminished. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, to be their God, and they shall be my people. And I will no more drive my people of Israel out of the land that I have given them.
Khan. So, once again, we see here, an everlasting covenant, just like we saw in Jeremiah 30, 2, Slakia, Jeremiah 32. And we also see, part of that everlasting covenant, what precedes it is, his people being gathered out of the lands that they've been scattered, Salakia. So, that's definitely a precursor to us, coming into this new covenant. We have to be gathered out of the lands that we have been scattered into. Um, Adriel, can you get Ezekiel 20, 33 through 37? Just once again, it's going to show the same thing. So, just to nail it home that we have to be gathered out of, well, actually, this one's going to be much more specific about us being gathered and what happens before we come into this new covenant. So you can bring this one out.
Khan, this is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 20 and verse 32, you said, right?
You can start at verse 33 through 37.
Oh, Khan. As I live, saith the Lord God, surely with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm and with fury poured out will I rule over you. And I will bring you out from the people, and will gather you out from the countries wherein ye are scattered, with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm, and with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I plead with you face to face. Like as I pleaded with your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt, so will I plead with you, saith the Lord God. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and I will bring you into the bond of the covenant.
Con. So, this literally talks about him dealing with us, face to face in the wilderness. I'm not going to get it, but, it even references the wilderness when it talks about the woman in Revelations. So basically, once again, this shows that he has to gather us out of all nations that we've been scattered with an outstretched arm at his return. And, he's going to deal with us in the wilderness, and then we will, pass under the rod of his covenant. So, we are not currently in this new covenant once again. Um, KB, just to get more specific about this new covenant and what it entails to show that we're not in it, can you get Jeremiah 31 and read verses 31 through 34, Baba Kasha?
Khan. This is the book of Jeremiah, chapter 31, and it reads thus and so. It says, Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they break, although I was an husband unto them, saith the Lord. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel. After those days, saith the Lord, I will put my law in their inward parts, and write in it their hearts, so I can write it in their hearts. And I will be their God, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach no more every man his neighbor, and every man his brother, saying, Know the Lord, for they shall know all Slack for they shall all know me, from the least of them to the greatest of them, saith the Lord. For I will forgive their iniquity, and I will remember their sin no more.
Con. So, right here, after this, you really shouldn't have any question of whether we're in the new covenant or not, because it makes it pretty clear to me. Paul, after Christ went out to teach the commandments, this wouldn't even be necessary, to do if Christ's death immediately brought us into the new covenant. The laws, would be in our hearts, and we would no longer need to know the way, be taught not to do the ways of sin. Um, you know, Basically, we would be as Adam and Eve, prior to the fall of mankind. Um, and I want to show that, that's literally what happened when they, digested that doctrine, in the garden from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. So, Azriel, can you get Genesis chapter 3 and read verses 4 through 5? And then KB, can you hold Genesis 2 and 7? Baba Kusha.
Come, this is the book of Genesis, chapter 3, and verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, Ye shall not surely die. For God doeth know that in the day ye eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and ye shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
Con. So the doctrine that, Adam and Eve digested right here, that, the serpent, which we would know was, Satan, basically presented to them. It taught them good and evil. So if they did not know good and evil prior to this, they only knew the good. This would actually be us in a new covenant, standing with God, only knowing how to do good and, keep the commandments. So I want to get KB. Can you bring out Genesis 2 and 7, and then Azrael, can you hold Genesis 2, chapter three, verse 5 through 7? Because I want to show that this breath of life that Yahweh breathed into Adam, was the law, statutes, and commandments, and the ability to keep them.
Con. This is the book of Genesis, chapter 2, and verse 7. And the Lord Yahweh formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul.
Con. So, before I have Azrael bring this out, they say that the fear of the Most High is the keeping of the commandments. That's the beginning of life. So, in this verse, a lot of times people just think he breathed life into him and allowed him to breathe. No, he actually gave him the ability to keep the law, statutes, and commandments. So now, Azrael, can you bring out 2nd Esdras, chapter 3, verse 5 through 7, Baba Kushal?
Khan. Repeat that again for me one more time, Baba Kusha. Second Ezra 3.
Yeah, Khan. 2nd Esdras 3, verses 5 through 7.
Oh, Khan. Excellent precept. It's the book of Second Ezra, chapter 3, verse 5. And body unto Adam without soul, which was the workmanship of thine hands, and didst breathe into him the breath of life, and he was made living before thee. And thou leddest him into paradise, which thy right hand had planted, before ever the earth came forth. And unto him thou gavest commandment to love thy way, which he transgressed, and immediately thou appointedst death in him, and in his generations, of whom came nations, tribes, people, and kindred out of number.
Con. So, right here when we see this, the death that in him and his generations, that actually would be sin that was brought into the earth. Obviously Satan told Eve, you're not going to surely die. And she believed it, but she took death as a physical thing in this story. The death was spiritual. It brought sin into the world. So, and it also shows that breath, this passage I wanted Asriel just to bring out, also shows that these commandments would be the breath of life that Yahweh breathed into Adam. So Adam had an understanding and knowledge of the commandments and the ability to keep them. So now I want to get Hebrews 8 and 6. Azrael, Salakia, KB, can you hold that? And then Azrael, can you hold 1 John 2 and 1? Because now I want to get deeper into this new commandment, or New Testament, Salakia. New covenant, basically, what Yahweh Shai's death did, um, you know, towards us getting there, but we're not quite there yet into the new covenant because other things have to be fulfilled.
Con. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 8, and verse 6. But now hath he anointed a more excellent ministry, by how much also he is the mediator of a better covenant, which was established upon better promises.
Con. So, we know those better promises, just like we went through with Adam and Eve. They did not know the ways of sin prior to the fall of man. Um, that would be us in a new covenant standing, basically, with God. That's why it says in Jeremiah 31 that no man will have to teach his neighbor to love God, because from the greatest of them to the least of them, they will, know to do so. So, and also I wanted just to point out when it talks about a mediator of a better covenant, a mediator is somebody that goes between two parties to establish a resolution, and that resolution, always not always is immediate, so it takes time for that resolution to be established between these two parties. Azrael, can you get 1 John 2 and 1 to show, what he's doing on our behalf?
Khan, this is the book of First John, verse 2, chapter 2, verse 1, Salakia. My little children, these things write I unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, We have an advocate with the Father, Yahushua Mashiach, the righteous.
Khan. So, we see that he's our advocate. That's the same understanding that you get in Hebrews 8 and 6 about him being a mediator. He goes between for us and the Most High, so that, we have a chance to go back, come back to, good grace with the Most High. That's what his death on the cross, was able to do for the children of Israel. Now, KB, can you get Hebrews 8 and 13? Because I want to show once again that, this is written after Yahushua's death, burial, and resurrection. And, it's going to say something that shows that we are not currently in this new covenant.
God. This is the book of Hebrews, chapter 8 and verse 13. He, Slaket, in that he saith a new covenant, he hath made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxeth old is ready to vanish away.
Khan. So when something is ready to vanish away, it has not currently vanished away. So, we are still under the standards of the old covenant. We have not come into a new covenant where we will be made perfect again, and we will know all the law, statutes, and commandments and be able to keep them, in a perfect manner. So, want to get something real quick. Can Salaki, can we get back to Matthew 24? I want to read verses 29 through 36.
Khan, we could do that. You said Matthew 24 and 29?
Yeah, Khan, through 36, because I want to make a point about, his return. And KB, can you hold Isaiah 13 9 through 10? If
Khan,
you're at Matthew 24, you can bring it out. I don't want.
what were the verses again? I'm in Matthew 24.
29 through 36. I'm going here to show
Khan.
basically just the timeline of his return. Once again, we've already established that we come into the new covenant when we're gathered at his return. So I want to show, the all the things that go around his return.
Khan, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. And he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, and from one end of heaven to the other. Now learn a parable of the fig tree, when his branch is yet tender, and it putteth forth leaves. Ye know not that summer is nigh. So likewise ye, when ye shall see all these things, Salakia, know that it is near, even at the door. Verily I say unto you, this generation shall not pass till all these things be fulfilled. Heaven and earth shall pass away, but my word shall not pass away. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father only. But as the days of Noah
Oh
were,
no, Khan, you can rest there.
okay, come.
So KB, can you read well, actually read verse 29 again, because there's a point I want to make here about the signs in the heavens that come, before Yahushua's return.
Come, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 29. Immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken.
Con. So, this eschatology wise, when we get this verse in Isaiah 13 9 through 10, it's going to show that this takes place in the last days. So, KB, can you bring that up?
Khan, this is the book of Isaiah, chapter 13 and 9. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, cruel both with wrath and fierce anger, to lay the land desolate, and he shall destroy the sinners thereof out of it. For the stars of heaven and the constellations thereof shall not give their light. The sun shall be darkened in his going forth, and the moon shall not cause her light to shine.
Khan. So we see, all these things take place in the day of the Lord or in the last days. These are things that take place at His return. Salakia, prior to His return. We've already established that in order for us to come into the new covenant, He has to gather us from all nations. So that would have to take place after His return, showing that we're not in the new covenant. But I wanted to pretty much end with this part. Going into the signs of us. You know, His return, just to go into, because it'll lead into my next lesson that I'll have for next week. So, Azrael, can you read verse 30 again, Baba Kusha? And then KB, can you hold Revelations 1 and 7?
Come, it's the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 30. And then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory.
Con. So, once again, the concept of Christianity or all people being saved is, retarded, for lack of better words, because it says all the tribes of the earth shall mourn. Seeing the Son of Man come back, they should be, happy, like the children of Israel will be. But clearly it's because they're going to be upset because this is the end of their kingdoms. So KB, can you bring out Revelations 1 and 7 to show that chronology wise what's taking place in verse 30 is the same thing that's being described in Revelations 1 and 7?
Con, this is the book of Revelations, chapter 1 and verse 7. Behold, he cometh with clouds, and every eye shall see him, and they also which pierced him, and all kindreds of the earth shall wail because of him. Even so, amen.
Con. So the best thing I can compare this to when it comes to the nations, it's almost like when you've done something wrong and your dad gets home at 5 o'clock and you're gonna get your ass whooped, and that's basically how they're viewing Yahweh Shai's return. So that's why they're going to be mourning when he returns. um then can you bring out verse 31 again, Azrael? Matthew 24:31.
Come, and he shall send his angels with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other.
Con. So, as we've covered, part of the covenant is the gathering that takes place with the elect, or, as well as the hopeful elect, being gathered from the four corners of the earth where if they've been scattered to. So, this really kind of shows right here that takes place once again after his return. So, we actually have to wait for his return to come into this new covenant. And I want to end with verse 36. Can you bring that out just one more time? And I'm going to have just two more precepts after that.
No problem. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, and verse 36. But of that day and hour knoweth no man, no, not the angels of heaven, but my Father alone, or only.
Con. So there's something very heavy here that a lot of people miss when they read Acts 1 and 7, and it's talking about, when will he establish, the kingdom back to Israel. It's literally the same thing that he's saying in verse 36 about his Father alone knowing that time. So I want to show that that's, true with the last two precepts, but once again, just to make it clear in people's minds, KB, can you bring out Acts 1 and 7?
Khan, it's the book of Acts, chapter 1 and verse 7. And he said unto them, it is not for you to know the time or the season which the Father hath put in his own power. Salah.
Khan. So, playing upon tables, this return to, the kingdom of Israel, as well as, Yahushai second return, those two things take place at a synonymous point. It's all synonymous with each other. So the last couple of precepts I want to get, Azrael, can you hold Revelations 14:14 through 16? And then KB, can you hold Matthew 24:44? Because I want to go here in Revelations 14 through basically to showcase that Yahushua does not know the time of his return, even after he's been crucified, buried and resurrected into the kingdom and sits at the right hand of Yahweh. So he still does not know his hour or date of return.
You want to stop at 16 or 17?
Uh, Let me look. So I put it for 16, but I might actually, yeah, no, 16, 16.
Oh, you want to start? Okay, calm. It's the book of Revelation, chapter 14 and verse 14. And I looked, and behold, a white cloud, and upon the cloud one sat like unto the Son of Man, having on his head a golden crown, and in his hand a sharp sickle. And another angel came out of the temple, crying with a loud voice to him that sat on the cloud, thrust in thy sickle and reap, for the time is come for thee to reap, for the harvest of the earth is ripe. And he that sat on the cloud thrust in his sickle on the earth, and the earth was reaped.
Con. So, this verse is actually going into, an angel basically being told, to tell you how Yahushai, sitting on a cloud, that, it's time for him to go back and return to the earth. It's time for the harvest of the saints. So this is what that is going into. Once again, showing that even in his resurrection into the kingdom, he still does not know the day nor the hour. So, this is really patiently what we, as the children of Israel, while we're, keeping the law, statutes, and commandments to the best of our abilities, this is truly what we should be waiting, patiently for. So, KB, can you bring out Matthew 24:44, Baba Kasha?
Khan, this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24 and verse 44. Therefore be ye also ready, for in such an hour as ye think not the Son of Man cometh.
Khan. So, really, we never know when he's going to return. That's why daily, we have to stay ready, stay keeping the law, statutes, and commandments. Um, I actually have one precept that just popped into my mind dealing with, his return. I just want to give one more. Um, Azrael, can you get Second Ezra 16 and 38, Baba Kusha?
God, this is the book of Second Ezra, chapter 16 and verse 38. And it reads, as when a woman with child in the 9th month bringeth forth her son, within 2 or 3 hours of her birth, great pains compass her womb, which pains, when the child cometh forth, they slack not a moment.
Khan. So, this is a similitude basically to Yahushua's return. We don't know which months per se it is, but when you look at the, basically a lot of the prophecies that are being fulfilled on the earth, those birth pains are, um, basically are heating up daily. So, we definitely know that the time is coming closer and closer. So we definitely have to stay vigilant, stay, prepared, stay keeping the law, statutes, and commandments, and, keep the faith daily. Lord willing, this was edifying. I'm going to be having another one next Saturday, and I'm going to try my best to be a lot more consistent with these. But just going to continue to let the Spirit lead in terms of what to bring out. But with that, I yield. Brothers, if you have any comments, feel free, or precepts, feel free.
No, it was a good lesson. I mean, I think you were pretty thorough. You went through the Old Testament, the New Testament, back and forth to show that we are not yet in completion of the new covenant, right? Yahushua's death marked the transition of us now having a mediator, because with the law, we were exercised by the letter of the law, meaning there was no place of repentance until he arrived on the scene. But we are not in the full transition of the new covenant, where we having the laws on our inward parts and keeping the commandments perfectly, right? So I don't think there's anything to add unless KB has something he wants to put in there.
Um, well, listen, it's nothing to really add to this, but I did have something that was like, just kind of on my mind as the brother was bringing out. And, me and Mike talk about this back and forth a lot. And, where we go, jumping in and out of these rooms, you have I would say from the Christian aspect or the modern day Christian aspect of that, you know, like he mentioned briefly that we are saved, right? That, and, for the people that say we are in a new covenant, right? We know from, the book of Luke, chapter 1 and 68, that we have to be saved from our enemies, that Yahweh shall have to save us from our enemies. We also know that, um, it speaks about us, being saved from those enemies, right? Or being in that time when we need to be saved from our enemies from, books like, if you go to verses like Daniel 12:1, right? Revelations, it speaks of 12:7. It speaks about that war, these type of things. You go to Second Esdras, which we were just in, right? You go down to what is that? I believe it was Second Esdras, uh, uh, Second Esdras 16, which we was just in, right? And it's you go down to 73, it talks about, then shall they be known who are my chosen, right? The world doesn't know that yet. So how can we be in a new covenant when, and it's one precept that I want to read real quick, if I may, just to add on, because this was definitely a perfect lesson. Um, real quick. um This is the book of Wisdom of Solomon, and chapter 5. And I'm going to start at 1 real quick. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear, and shall be amazed at the straightness of his salvation, for so far beyond all that they looked for. And they, repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit, shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision, and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness, and his end to be without honor. How is he numbered among the children of Yahweh, and his lot is among the saints? So when I read that, that speaks of prophetic, of future. We don't have nations saying that at this moment, right? We don't have our enemies, which we're supposed to be saved from, right? How should I say it? We don't have them groaning and saying that these, we can't even get people to give these people that suppress us to give us reparations, right? They still kill us in the streets. So for the Christians and the people that say we are in the new covenant, it speaks about us being in this position of prominence, of people repenting and groaning, for they know that we are the true children that they have oppressed and killed. And we still, because we report the news every day, so we still know that the saints are still being murdered, still being killed. So we have not yet been saved from our enemies. So I think it was perfect that the brother Mike brought this out because it's very apparent, right? If you go to the book of Jeremiah, 8:22, it's 8:20. It speaks of, that it says that we are still not saved, right? All these things has passed and we're still not saved, roughly paraphrasing. So it's very apparent, plain upon tables. As I said, a beautiful lesson. I'm glad the brother brought this out. And that's all I really had to add.
Con, excellent precepts on that was Wisdom in Solomon chapter 5, right?
Con 1 through 5.
Con, great precept.
Great. Calm. You know. So if we don't have anything else, I guess we could close it out. But once again, great lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai, the water brother, for bringing it out. It's a damn good lesson. All right.
For water. I'd like to end by, the same way that I like to start. I'd like to say all praise to Yahweh Bashem and Mashiach Yahweh Shai. For water to everybody that came out to the room. Lord willing, this was edifying. This will also be up on my YouTube as well as, KB's YouTube, most likely, later in the day. So, if you missed anything or if you'd like to, share it, it'll definitely be up for, edification purposes. So, not nothing really else to add. All praises for water to everybody that came out. And there should be another lesson, you know, dealing with this coming up next week. I yield.
Con. I guess so. With that being said, hey, shalom.
Yo, we pulling out the sword. Who wanted this?